Hello, Patrick Nichols again here with a 1970 Chevelle SS396 barn find that was parked in the storage lot since 1983. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to all those individuals that took the time to go on the various forums and websites and say a lot of kind words about myself and my brothers over the last few days. We can't thank those enough for taking the time to do that, and it's been greatly appreciated. This car has brought us a lot of attention lately, and we are definitely grateful for the kind words. This car also has received a lot of attention. I've received a lot of inquiries about it. A lot of people are intrigued, fascinated with the car. One of the questions that I've received quite often was, what is L78? What does that mean? What is this letter and this numerical code? Well, how does that tie into this story? And to answer your question, Chevrolet designated every option on the car with its own RPO code. And RPO is the acronym for Regular Production Option. So every option has its own RPO code. It generally starts with a letter followed by a 2-digit numerical code. So for instance, air conditioning C60, or power steering N40, special instrumentation U14. So generally all of them start with a letter followed by a two-digit numerical code. Engine options are referred to and generally start with an L. So the standard SS396 was a L34. Keep in mind, 53,599 SS396 cars were assembled in 1970. 2,144 were of the L78 variety. So 2,144 of that 53,599 were L78 option were assembled. A very low percentage. Another question I've received a lot is, where did you learn what you know? Who taught you what you know? How do you know about these cars? To answer your question, it's a cumulative effect. It didn't happen overnight. It takes a great deal of passion. I learned it from working on them, going to car shows every summer for years and years, and generally learning from individuals that know more than I do, and listening and trying to learn all the time. So it didn't happen overnight. You have to have a passion for it, and generally go to car shows and pay attention. So you have to have a passion for it. My brother's wife likes to say that a car show consists of us standing in a parking lot for 3 days staring at a fender, or discussing whether something was bare steel or had paint on it, a particular part. The funny thing is that's a fairly accurate observation of what goes on at these car shows. So the knowledge doesn't come overnight, but once you attain a certain level of knowledge, you generally want to give back or go out and find or unearth a new car or something. So anybody that knows me knows that I'm always itching to go and search out the next car, the next find. If I go on vacation or I go visiting family somewhere, I'm always wanting to go look around somewhere that I haven't been and look for these cars. So it doesn't happen overnight, and generally you're striking out a lot and you don't, but one day you do find these things can be still found, and that's what happened here. Now my next question that I want to answer is a little bit more of the technical variety, and it comes from individuals about this canister that is in here. Now that canister that is right there, now why is that? Why did you document that? Okay, well, to answer your question, that is considered RPO code NA9, and that the title of that is Evaporative Emissions Control. And the reason I documented that is California vehicles were required by law to be equipped with this option in order to be sold in the state of California legally. So I knew that this was a California car, so I wanted to document that option to be on this car. Now granted, it was available elsewhere in the United States, but it was required by law to be sold on a vehicle in California. RPO code NA9 on the build sheet where those RPO codes are placed. The next question that I've received a lot is what's the deal with a single gas line? Why did you talk about the single gas line? Well, to answer your question on that is these Chevelles, the early special high performance L78 cars, were early cars. All early cars, or all special high performance cars, used the 727 fuel pump. Now granted, let me give you a little rundown on what that means. Most every part on these cars, amongst people that are in this hobby or sport, they refer to them by the last three of the part number that they're designated. So 727 is the last three of the part number for the fuel pump, which was the high performance fuel pump in a single gas line. That 727 was used all the way up through February or March on the LS6 cars as well. So if it would have been a standard SS396 on an early car, it would have used the 768 fuel pump, which had a dual fuel line. So that single fuel line is a determining factor for a special high performance car. So that is the reason why I documented that fuel pump in the single gas line, because that is definitely foolproof on a special high performance car. It had to have a single gas line for it to be special high performance. And we know that all L78s are early cars, so you know it had to have the single gas line, because they didn't use the dual gas line on the high performance cars until somewhere around February or March, depending on the assembly plant. Next question, they want to know about the hood stripes, that I said something about them having the correct stencil layout. Okay, now when I said the correct stencil freehand layout, on an original paint car, when the process that took place when these stripes were placed, when they come down the assembly line, they laid a stencil down to about 2 to 3 inches before the very end of the stripe. And at the very end of the stripe, the last 2 to 3 inches, it was free-handed with a piece of tape, and they made the turn, and you can see where that is, and that's what I meant. And if you'll look right here, right there, is where the tape, where the stencil met the freehand, and you'll be able to see it on both sides. Right there, right there, and right there. So again, the stripe was laid down with a sticker, a stencil, and then the last part, the last couple inches, was laid out by hand by an individual. Again, right here, you'll see the tape, where the tape and the stencil meet. You can see it right there. Right there. So I hope that answers your question about the stencil and the freehand layout. And the last question was, what's the story? Why does the story behind this? What makes one car different than the other? Or why do you want to tell stories on the car? Why do you want to build a story? Well, the answer to that question is, if you really think about it, all of these cars for the most part, are the same. It's a big pile of steel, metal, plastic, glass, aluminum, and rubber. So they're all the same. So what makes them all different is the stories behind them. So that's what we connect with. So the fact that this car sat in a storage lot since 1983 is the story behind it. So you hear a lot of times, you'll hear somebody say, my dad had a car like that, or I went to high school in a car like that. I used to drag race a car like that. My dad said I was brought home from the hospital in a car like that. That's the story behind it. A famous person owned my car. That's what we connect with. That's what makes each and every one of them different. So us as human beings, we are emotionally driven individuals. So that's what we connect with. That's what we want to know. Otherwise, a car is a car is a car. So every car whether it be a Chevelle, Camaro, whatever it is, it all has its own story. So if there's no story behind it, we cannot connect with it. So that's the reason why this car was such a big success. First of all, it was a very rare high performance car. Second of all, is the story behind it, that it was a very high performance car, generally made for racing. That's what they did. They brought them straight to the racetrack and raced these cars. That's what they were meant for. That's what they were bought for. That's what happened to every one of them. That didn't happen to this one. This car went to a storage lot when it was only 13 years old, still pretty much all intact, and it's sat there for over 30 years. That is a huge story that will always be with this car. So build your car story, be able to tell your story and document it, because that's what we connect with when you get ready to sell it, buy it, or whatever, when it enters the market. That's what we want to know. So that is the reason why this story did so well, and the Hot Rod Carcraft guy and I agreed on, and we worked on this story, was that people want to know the story. That's what we connect with. That's what we want to bring to people. So that's why the story was such a success, because I knew that it had a big story behind it, and it's pretty much a factory race car. So I love to hear your Chevelle story. I appreciate all the kind words. The people have emailed me or Facebooked me, messaged me, and so forth. I love to hear your story. So if you want to contact me with your Chevelle story, I'd like to hear it, help you build one, whatever it may be. I hope I've answered all the questions appropriately, and I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Thank you.